I thought I'd bring everyone who's interested up to date on this BSA Gold Star 350 that I'm working on. And as we can see here, I've got the wheels off it, front and rear. I've got new tyres coming. The tyres on these, the date codes, I had a look actually and online, and the date codes on the tyres on this machine have only got 3 digits, not 4, and that apparently dates them straight away to anywhere prior to the year 2000, so they're at least 23 years old, those tyres, probably more, so about time for some new ones. Anyway, I ran into something quite interesting. I've been cleaning the brakes up as well while, you know, I've had the rear hub off and dismantled it and cleaned all sorts of crap out of there, so we might actually have a rear brake as well now. The front one actually looked okay, but what I noticed when the front wheel was off, having already dealt with the steering head bearings, I noticed that the steering felt a little bit heavy and tight, so I thought I'll just back it off a half a turn on the adjuster, you know, as you do, and that'll all be alright. I freed off, and then I did the little lock nut up on top of the top yoke. I'll explain all this in a moment, but this one here, and it went tight again. So I slacked the lock nut off, backed the castellated sleeve nut off. In fact, I'll explain this now. The castellated sleeve nut bears down on the dust cover, which in turn bears down on the inner race of the top of the steering head bearing. So the cone, if you like, the top race, the inner race that is adjustable, that you screw down to sort of get rid of any play in the steering head bearings, is adjusted by this castellated sleeve nut, which has got this lock nut on. And what happens is, like I said, the castellated nut bears down on the dust cover, which in turn bears down on the inner race. You adjust it up, you take out the slop in your steering head bearings. Simple. But here's the top yoke, and I didn't realise I wound turn after turn after turn back off this castellated nut, did the lock nut up on the top yoke, and the steering would be stiff again. But every time I undid it, in order to back some more off, play in the steering head bearings would only come back to a very small degree, and once I tightened things up, it would disappear again. So what's going on here? This is what's going on here. This top yoke, that hole there going straight through it where the steering head stem passes through it, is just a round hole. There's no means of clamping it to the steering head stem or the castellated sleeve nut or anything. It just relies on being a close, tight fit. Now, first of all, because I'd seen a gap opening up between the top of this dust seal and the underside of the top yoke when I kept backing the adjustment off, I decided I'd better get the top yoke off and have a look and see what was going on. And my first thoughts were maybe I should put some sort of a shim or washer between this face here and the dust seal, because I thought perhaps the top yoke was bearing down on the shoulders of the dust seal perhaps, and causing things to bind every time I tightened the lock nut up. Not so. I've given it some more thought. What's actually been happening, and it's quite obvious, it may well already have registered with some. It doesn't matter how much I back that castellated sleeve nut off to slacken off the steering head bearings. Once I do this lock nut up on the top yoke, the lock nut adjusts the steering head bearings back up to all intents and purposes through the thickness of the top yoke, which bears on the dust seal, which bears on the inner race of the top bearing. So I've been chasing my tail for about an hour and a half with that, wondering what on earth has been going on and why I can slacken off the castellated nut, get everything moving freely, tighten up the lock nut on the top yoke, and everything starts to bind. Well, that's why. And the only thing I can think that I'm going to have to do here is just literally get the adjustment right on the castellated nut, and then when it comes time to tighten this down on the top yoke, literally just take it finger tight and then just nip it with the spanner, and that's the lot. And obviously the nuts will be tight on the ends of the stanchions there where their tapers pull in and lock into the top yoke as well. But certainly not a very good design, that. Not a very good design at all, but there's not really anything I can do about that one with the nature and design of this top yoke. That must be how it's meant to be. I know that I'll have the steering head bearings adjusted right on the castellated sleeve nut, and I know that I have to sort of tap the top yoke over the sleeve nut with a hide mallet. It's a very, very close fit, but there's no means of actually locking the steering, the top yoke to the steering head stem via the big hole there. You've just got to leave it, obviously you can't sort of really haul it down with a ratchet spanner or a ring spanner or anything. Just be finger tight and then a little nip. But obviously I'm going to be riding this thing at some stage. I'm not taking chances there as such, but I'm very, very surprised that that is how the design is intended to work. And the last thing then, after we've made our adjustment on the castellated sleeve nut and done up or nipped up our lock nut, this goes on after the lock nut then, just to sort of tidy things up a little bit. So I'll put it back together, obviously the way it was designed to be, which is not a very great design. Certainly had me scratching my head for a while, but I think I know how to deal with it. Hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate fairly soon that it's working as intended, but as I already said, not a great design.